got anything else?
Well, I got Jen asked me a question. She emailed me a question. She's never done before, but she said somebody had hit her up on YouTube who was a Jewish person and was asking, is it a sin for Jewish people who are ethnically Jewish, or were raised Jewish and their family's Jewish and stuff like that, but they're grace believers? Is it a sin for them to still practice their Jewish holiday stuff with their families that are not saved, just because it's like family tradition type of stuff?
So it's not a faith to sin. It depends on their
Opinion
motivation.
towards it.
Yeah,
right.
Because like you, I'll say it like this: you went to your father's funeral, but there was a reason you did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know all about the bellish and stuff, but you did it as to gain them. So I'll use the Apostle Paul for example. Okay.
Right.
The Apostle Paul, to the end, still went to the feast days and so forth. When he was among the Jews, he act like a Jew. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. And he tells you why he did it, that I might gain the more. Paul understood all of those things, what they pointed to and stuff like that. He told the Gentiles, don't you guys be forced to do that, Colossians. But when it came to Paul, he would still do that in order to gain the Jews. Mm-hmm. So I would say, in such a case, if that believer who's raised in Judaism, now saved, I would say that in that case, it's not a sin for them to do that if their motivation is to somehow down the road keep an opening with their family members, like you did with going to you endure, well, you mentioned your father's funeral, but all the stuff you do, cousin camp, a lot of these things you around your lost family members. I know you because we'll talk about it. You always looking for an open door to talk with them about the Lord, right? And get into discussions and stuff too. So, at the cousin camp. So I would say if that's what they're doing it in order to keep close to family, which in that Jewish, that's how they remain close. God gave them the things to not only be close to Him, but His families.
Well, also it could be so offensive to their family members that they're not doing it anymore that they wouldn't listen to anything.
Well, that's exactly right. Exactly.
So basically, shutting the door on the opportunity to.
That's the whole reason you went to your father's funeral, sure. And that bell worship in place. Hey, so I would say no. And again, that's why it's such case.
Right. If that's the motivation you're saying, but if the motivation is something that's not for the glory of God,
because whatsoever is not of faith is sin.
Right.
But in that case, if that person says, Lord, I'm doing this, they talk about, I'm doing this, Father, because I want the opportunity. I want that opportunity. I want opportunity to get to at least one of my lost family members, explain to them who Jesus is from the Old Testament Scripture, and teach them, bring them up to speed with Paul. Like if that's their motivation, I think that is an honorable thing. Yeah.
Now,
it's to keep the door open.
Now, of course, if this is a lost Jew, then basically everything they do is sin because what's not a faith is sin.
Right. But if it's a believer, and that's what Jan's saying, it's a believer.
I believe that's what she's saying. I believe that's what the question was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, then to me, that's exactly how the Apostle Paul lived his life.
Mm-hmm.
He lived his life going to these feast days with the sole purpose of having opportunities to gain other lost Jews to the Lord. Yep. That I might gain them, that I might save some of them. So that's why he did it. Yeah.
So the actual question.
Paul didn't feel like he had to do it. Let's say that.
The actual question was: is us keeping our Jewish holidays and circumcising as our culture a sin? So
well, no, it's not. Like she's talking about like certain. It depends. See, it depends on why are they circumcision.
Right.
It's with God. It's always the motive behind it, because we do live under grace. If they're circumcising, if if that person, that's the person asking, supposedly a believer, right?
That's what I'm inferring, but it could be either or, I suppose. I'm looking at the question.
Well, if they're lost, everything they do is
Right,
sin.
right.
If they're saved, if they're circumcising their child trying to keep an Abrahamic covenant, that's sin, because Paul says you don't have to do that.
Well, for example, if a lost person, everything is sin. If a lost person is helping somebody out who's hungry or something like that, I mean, would that still be a sin if they're just doing it because, look, this person looks like they're hungry, I want to help them out?
You know, it's a verse back there, I think it says, even the plowing of the wicked is sin, which means sin is not acceptable unto God.
Right, sin is anything not acceptable to God, anything
Right.
missing the mark, right?
And I mean, where's Mother Teresa? She spent most of her adult life literally.
Well, I'm just wondering
if
if that, so obviously there's
it'll get them less.
That's what I was.
It'll get them less wrath in the lake of fire.
Right.
So if one lost person is murdering folks and one is ministering to folks,
they're both sin, but one is the greater sin.
One's eternal torment will be greater than the other.
Right.
It's just the way. Yeah. These extremes, like Mother Teresa, nice Catholic woman, she gave her life.
Well, depending on what you read about it.
Well, yeah. The main thing they show is, she's on the ground, the Catman dude doing that. And I'm assuming she didn't go around blowing heads off, or cutting heads off. I don't know what she did herself. But the point is, you compare like these extremes, Hitler. If you used your little lost life, which the average person does, don't go around killing and you're just gonna have less wrath than the person who just the guy who killed 77 people over in Europe and stuff. Like, he has all that blood on his hands. He died in that stuff. That's a lot worse than somebody's grandma who
kept her Jewish holidays.
So everything with God is motive in this dispensation of grace, because if that person, let's say it's a believer and they're circumcising their child, you know what Paul says? Circumcision availeth nothing, uncircumcision availeth nothing. But if they're doing it, saying, God, I'm doing this to keep the Abrahamic covenant, to be blood, God says that's not a faith. That's sin.
That's sin. Right.
That's sin. No.
But if they're doing that because that way they're not going to cause a stumbling block when relating to their lost Jewish family members, then that is something that's acceptable to
Paul. Listen, this is great, because that's why did Paul get Timothy circumcised? Paul circumcised Timothy for the Jews, and of course, Paul says, I guarantee he says, Timothy, from what I learned from the Lord Jesus Christ, we Jews, we don't have to be circumcised anymore. We don't have to circumcise our sons. But Timothy, you're a Jew, I'm a Jew, by nature, as we said to Peter, as to not be a stumbling block to our relatives. We can't have our children uncircumcised. They won't even allow them in the home. Then, since it matters not to God, circumcision availeth nothing, uncircumcision availeth nothing, let's circumcise. In fact, Timothy, I want you to be circumcised. By the way, Timothy was circumcised so he wouldn't be a stumbling block to those Jews. They wouldn't even, if they knew his father was a Greek, and they knew those Greek men didn't circumcise their son. If Timothy had all the wisdom of God and wanted to share it with them, as long as he was uncircumcised, Jews would do this. And they said, Paul, he's not circumcised. He's not circumcised. Okay, let's circumcise him. Okay, now I listen. That is to not be a stumbling block. So, I would say that. Yeah. I mean, it's the same with any religion. You too. You do certain things with your Catholic family as to not be a stumbling block and to have the door open, right?
My dad's funeral was
Christmas.
Well, let's talk about that. For example, when we lived in Minnesota, Krista and I, listen, her family held Easter Sunday this and Christmas this. We went. Now, we didn't go we know about Christmas, we know about Easter and stuff, but what it was to ask to not be a stumbling block. And if anyone else wants to know our beliefs, they know what we believe about it, don't they? Yeah. No. They know we don't celebrate at our home, but we went because for the family's sake, that dynamic, because we knew some of the relatives and stuff, and we'd get into talks where we could share truth with them. But so, anyway.
What about is there like so I've heard talk about that concept about once you're, and it sounds legalistic to me, but once it's made evident that the festival, i.e. the dinner party that you've been invited to, and the food is in honor of a pagan festival like Christmas, that therefore it's meat that's to idols and you shouldn't be eating it.
No, because Paul says, we know the idol's not anything, and that which is sacrificed to God is nothing. He says, when you go with 1 Corinthians 6. It's just that, yeah. It's the knowledge of the person. Now watch this. Go to 1 Corinthians, 6. Go to 1 Corinthians 8. Let me see if this one. Okay. That's a good. Listen, it's all the person, the conscience of the person. Paul, this is what he's saying. You can eat that meat that was sacrificed to idols, because you know an idol is nothing. Now, if someone, he's always looking at the consciences of the people. Let me show you something. Go down, verse. Basically, it's this question. Look at chapter 8 of 1 Corinthians, verse number 4. 8 verse 4. This is exactly it. So let's say we grace believers go to our lost or denominational family on Christmas or Easter. We don't, in our home, we don't celebrate Christmas, Easter, none of that stuff. We know that, okay, but they did it. Verse 4. As concerning, therefore, the eating of those things that are offered in sacrifice unto idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and that there is none other God but one. Then he talks about that in number 1. Verse 7. Howbeit there is not in every man that knowledge, for some with conscience of the idol unto this hour eat it as a thing offered unto God. So if they're weak and their conscience defiled, that's done them. Verse 8. But meat commendeth us not to God. For neither if we eat are we the better, neither if we eat not are we the worse. When it comes to that, God, so yeah, that's the Jehovah's Witness, Church of Christ type of thinking, I know too, where this one dude, Robin, he wouldn't eat a piece of the birthday cake because it was a birthday cake. Mm-hmm. And I go, so it could be a cake that's for some other thing, you can eat that. Right. Same, I mean, it was ridiculous. What I'm saying, that's what Paul, he's saying, he's just dealing with, the issue here is not so much what you eat and you drink. The kingdom of God is not a meat or drink. Look at, there was another path, is it, the point is, I don't see, okay, go to chapter 10, verse 18. Chapter 10 of 1 Corinthians, verse 18. Behold, Israel after the flesh. Are not they which eat of the sacrifices partaker of the altar? What say I then? Is the idol, what say I then? That the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice to the idols is anything? But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, and he's talking about the lost Jews, they sacrifice to devils and not to God. I would not you should have fellowship with devils. You cannot. Now he was talking about public worship. They were actually going in there. It'd be like if we actually went in there to a Catholic church and made that a fellowship. Right. But that's a little different between just eating. Go down to verse 25. Whatsoever is sold in the shambles. Now the shambles was their marketplace. Sure. And what happens was they would literally sacrifice these animals to their gods, but they'll take the meat down to the market.
It's kind of where I work in the shop.
Well, I was just thinking about it. Yeah, it's a market like here. Okay, verse 21. Whatsoever is sold in the shambles, that eat. So you can eat it. Asking no question for conscience sake, for the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. If any of them that believe not bid you to a feast, and you be disposed to go, go. Now check this out. Paul is saying they're not believers. They have no conscience of anything true. If they invite you to a feast and you be disposed to go, it's convenient, go. Now Paul would add this to us, the wisdom, use that as an opportunity. Just don't go just to be merry and eat well. Use it as an opportunity to open door to talk about the word.
Verse 28 that was presented, this whole thing about once they tell you it's a Christmas meal, then you're not supposed to eat it anymore.
Let me read verse 27. Right. If any of them that believe not bid you to a feast and you be disposed to go, whatsoever set before you, eat, asking no question for conscience sake. But if any man say unto you, now this any man, by the way, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols. Eat not for his sake that showed it, for conscience sake, for the earth is the Lord's kind. This would be a brother.
Right.
Notice it says, conscience I say not of thine own, but of the other. For why is my liberty to? For if I grace. See, now verse 30. This is the point from the believer side of the. For if I by grace, and that's the liberty we have to eat, be a partaker, why am I evil spoken of for that which I give God thanks? And by the way, whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever you do all the glory, give none offense. So here's the point: if no one sitting with you is offended,
right? And this includes lost people, evidently.
Well,
from
sure,
verse 32, right?
Sure. Okay, there you go. Even if I please all. So here's the point: if you go and no one's offended that you eat. If someone says, "Hey, that sacrifice to now again, it's cultural. This probably won't even happen here.
Right.
Maybe some other country."
Well, let's say. Let me give you a scenario. Let's
go
say
ahead.
I would never do this because I have a conviction of I
Sure.
don't want to be involved in Christmas celebrations. But let's say I went to my family's Christmas celebration next year or this year, and they're like, one of my cousins was like, "Well, hey Brian, how come you're eating this food here? I thought that was something against your belief system. You know, I'm kind of weirded out by this." At that point, what should I say? Well, I shouldn't eat this because I've offended this guy, and it might cause us to lose
what part of it was against your belief system? The actual holy day, or the food? Remember, the food. Here's what we need to know: the food in of itself is not the issue with God. The food, it's not an issue. We know, based upon your knowledge, right? So is he saying the event? Let's say the Christmas or Easter, or is he saying the food associated with it? Which one?
Well, what if either or? What's the difference whether it was the event or the food?
Well, I would tell him I don't believe in the event. I believe, but I do have freedom from God's word to go here and keep a door of utterance open to share. And as far as the food, there's no prohibition on the food, because even though my conscience, according to God's word, food is just food, because that's what Paul is saying. So I'm just saying, he says,
but obviously somebody couldn't in this time they couldn't say that if they went to some party and somebody was like, "Wait, why are you eating this food? It's for our festival, our pagan festival, and you're eating it. I'm kind of tripped out about it." They couldn't say, "Hey, man, this food. It's not about the food."
You know what I'd ask them? Why you were? Would you like to know more about the Lord Jesus? I mean, it's got. Here's the point. Paul brings it up. Verse 33. See, not giving offense is not just some general thing. If your lost cousin just brings that up just to bring it up, I'd ask him, why are you bringing it up? Because look what Paul says. Even as I please all men in all things, seeking not my own profit, but the profit of many, that they may be saved.
Right.
My point is, there was an end to that with Paul. He wanted to get them saved. But if your lost cousin, just inquisitive just for inquisitive's sake, in fact, I would ask him, why are you asking?
Right, why are you asking? What is that?
Do you want to know more about the Lord?
Right.
Put it on with something?
When
No.
you get down to it, kind of isn't any sort of family gathering if they're lost. Like, let's say you're going to a lost family, and like really, it's a pagan festival.
Here's
sort
basically
of,
what Paul
because they lost,
says.
so they
For
were,
you not to be around lost people, you got to leave the world.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, even at your
even if
markets,
it's not a holiday.
everybody in that market, you know, and I see you real good with the folks there, Chicago, Ron, and everybody, you know, you know. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure. I don't know. We talked to him. I'm assuming that he's probably lost. But you talk to him. You know, it's like you're gonna still deal with lost people all the time, right? I mean, we rent from this guy. He's most likely lost. The lady next door, we kind of. But the point is, you would have, and not if you worried about everything affecting lost people, you'd have to leave the world, or the world affecting you. The point is, Paul did things so that they might be saved. By the way, the only reason Krista and I would go to any family functions is so that we could keep the door open for conversation about the Lord.
Now,
We're not going just because we'd rather stay home, quite frankly.
Let me give you another example
go ahead.
or scenario. What if one of my cousins who's saved but is not built up in understanding?
Good. Now that's a good question. Go ahead.
Right, and they said, "Hey, I've been reading some stuff in 1 Corinthians, and you know, I came to this party, but I feel like, according to chapter 10, we're not supposed to be eating the food here, and I see you eating the food here, and it's kind of wrecking my mind. Like, what's going on, man? At that point, should I stop eating because he's a weaker brother who's not getting it?
My only thing with that is I would tell him, show me that, because I don't see that's what Paul is saying. Now, I would try to first teach him what I see there, and if it still was hard for him, then for his sake I wouldn't eat it. But I don't think that's what Paul's saying. Paul is saying we know that food that was sacrificed to idols is nothing. There's only one God. Eat the food. Mm-hmm. Eat the food. Don't ask questions about the food. If you don't know where it comes from, eat it. By the way, see, it's different too.
Well, but I mean, it clearly says "eat not" in verse 28, right? There is a scenario where you're not supposed to eat the food at some point, right?
Okay, it says sacrifice unto idols. Give me a scenario. Let's say you had a Christmas, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say they have a turkey, or I don't know. You don't even eat. I mean, like how does explain to me how a modern day scenario fits what's going on here, though.
What if somebody was to say, this turkey is in honor of the spirit of Christmas. Everybody dig in.
And then you do this. If your cousin's there, watch this. If you're the only one there, in your heart, you say, Lord, let's say you eat the turkey, right? Lord, they're dedicating to the spirit of Christmas. I'm dedicating to Lord Jesus Christ. I'm giving you thanks for it, right? Mm-hmm. That's what Paul said. Right. You eat it.
But what
if they're your cousins there, for his sake, you say, we will not partake of this food dedicated to the spirit of Christmas because we don't believe in the spirit of Christmas. We believe in the spirit of God. But we're here with you guys.
All right.
That's what I would do.
All right.
But that would be for his sake.
That's when the eating out of verse 28 comes to the
right.
point.
Right. If there's another person whose conscience is affected by that, especially if he, as you say, if he's a believer, he's a baby, right? Mm-hmm. And he's looking up to you, right? Trying to see, then he say, hey, man, I would say,
or even a lost person potentially who's kind of looking and trying to examine what I'm doing. And
if he brings it up to you, how do you know he's offended?
That's the case, Rondell.
Voiced his opinion.
He's voiced his opinion.
Right, so you can eat it until an opinion is voiced.
Right, and that's the point. But as soon as he makes that lost guy who's watching Ryan makes his opinion known, or voices his opinion, Ryan has the liberty to say, okay, for your sake, I won't partake of it. That's doing it for his conscience sake. But then Ryan,
that's the more excellent choice, right?
More excellent choice. But then keep going what Paul says. Now, I'm doing this.
Get to verse 33, right?
Right. I'm doing this. I care about your conscience now. I'm telling you why. I would like to share. By the way, that opens the door for them to hear the gospel. It does. Because that's what Paul said. Here's the reason he would. Paul is like, eat the meat, man. But if that person is, look, even as I please all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of many that they might be saved. So Paul has an end to that. Mm-hmm. He's not just being nice. He's saying, I won't eat it because you voiced your objection to it, but now that person opened the door for you to share.
I think, as Matt said, we unpacked these verses a little bit for sure, and it's obviously making a lot more sense than somebody saying, the second somebody says this is a Christmas party, you're not allowed to eat the food anymore.
Well, that's why it's kind of like, let's say you were at a wedding and some lost Catholic priest does this thing with the food. Oh, I can't eat it now. It's...
I'm telling you.
And in general, those wedding ceremonies, those are pagan religious.
Sure.
Wait, what?
Yep, they are.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, religious weddings with the wedding rings and the white dress and the blacks. That's all from paganism. There's nothing godly about
I
that.
don't care about the whole dress thing because I don't dress like that anyway. But the wedding ring is.
Yeah, well, any of that stuff. It's not. You show me anywhere where any of that's in the Bible.
And then
it's
also
a
the
cultural
ceremony
thing.
too.
Sure, it's a religious ceremony.
Because I always thought about getting a look anyway. I don't like big stuff like that. I never liked it anyway, so it's not like a big thing to me.
Yeah, when in rings in Scripture is also when someone gave like a ring or signet ring, it's partnership, ownership, partner. Like kings would then give their ring to their princes or someone who represents. It's like a representation. I think there's one where he's talking about. I think there's one. I got to remember where God Himself either gives it to the Messiah or to Israel. I have to find something about that. But that's an interesting study. Yeah. But there is it's symbolism there of sharing or bequeathing something. Yeah.
Well, the point is that any of these religious ceremonies that our society does, whether it be the festival feast days that we hold of, or I say we as a society, or any of these like weddings or anniversary type of things or baby showers and stuff like that, these are all technically not religious. They're not godly ceremonies. They're just something that our culture has created.
They aren't God ordained.
God ordained. That's a good way to put it.
Do this. Yeah.
Right. So technically, anybody could potentially be offended at any one of these feasts. Right.
Even just a gathering. They come and gather at my
like you were
house.
saying, even like a family reunion or something, potentially, right?
Like any kind of.
It's any of that's just modern day festivals. That's what festivals and feasts.
Festivals and holy convocations.
Parties, basically.
They were convocations where people come together.
Yeah.
Not holy, but convocations.
Right.
But yeah, and so I would be aware of that because Paul talks about commanding to abstain from meats, and what that is. You said, who commanded to abstain from meat? But how that would apply today would just be this type of stuff. It's them. You got to be very careful with that because I see the Jehovah's Witnesses, they do that.
Mm-hmm. Muslims.
The Muslims, like a lot of extreme religious groups do that type of stuff, where they say, well, we want. But Paul says, look here. Even in the days when they actually were, they would say, hey, this meat was sacrificed to whoever, right, the Baal. Mm-hmm. Paul says, we know that that's not real. Eat. Ask no question of conscience. Just eat it. If it's sold out in the shambles, don't say, hey, did y'all? Don't. He's saying to a believer, you see that piece of meat, say, hey, was this sacrificed to an idol? Because not all was. Some men just had flocks, right? And they would just bring it, sell it. But most of that meat was sacrificed down at the idol temple and brought to the market to sell. Now, Paul says, if you're a grace believer, don't ask where the meat came from.
It's like being stupid.
So he's saying the meat, there's nothing wrong with eating the meat. Yeah. Say that again.
It's like being stupid asking where the money comes from. Like if someone is giving you an offering or like giving you something, you don't say, hey, where'd you get this money?
If we just talk about money, period, just the trail. Most cash has cocaine and stuff on it anyway.
There you go.
And it's just Paul says, don't ask questions for conscience sake.
Because it can start messing with your mind.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And like Christian believers or Christians or like boycott stores or whatever. Oh, they support this.
It's like if you were going to boycott everything. You got to leave the world.
It's not redeeming the time because you're sitting there being all OCD about I can't go to this store, I can't do this store, and then I found out, I looked online, and these guys support
you wouldn't go anywhere because guaranteed the car that you were driving was made by the hands of a bunch of lost people. The gas that you're pumping in there, lost guy put that in there. Most of them are lost Muslims over in the Middle East. You just their gas. I mean, you can't live life that way. The shambles, the market. Ryan goes to market. Everybody in that market is not a grace believer. People you would have when we go to the supermarket.
Other than Rondell.
What's that?
What?
If you come by the market, then there's a grace believer there. Or you guys.
Yeah. But I mean, like Ryan goes to Whole Foods. That's your uncle. I can tell you this: one of the men who's part of that, he's lost as can be. Rich, but he lost. He sold his. Here's the point: you can't avoid. Paul says you would have to leave the world. So what he says is, like what Ryan just said, you have to live your life before the Lord with good conscience, right? That's what Paul says, with good conscience.
And I think
Paul knew that there are going to be believers who ate meat, sacrificed to idols. So what he wanted to do is, he goes, you guys asked about it. It's not a big deal, but if it offends another brother or even a lost person, with the means to the end is to get them saved, then don't eat it. If they voice it, don't eat it. He never says, by the way, he never says don't go to a gathering of lost people, just don't go into their temples. If lost people, because think about it, your family, your extended family would have lost people in it. Paul never says avoid. This is what Jehovah's Witnesses do. They avoid lost family members. But that's stupid. Who are we supposed to deal with? We're supposed to get the gospel to him.
Yeah, but I know my cousins are shunning my other cousin right now because of Jehovah's Witnesses, and his home parents won't talk to him and stuff.
So here's the point I have about Jehovah's Witnesses. Why are you shunning those closest to you? Shouldn't you be trying to get them to believe the thing? Work on them? Imagine if we believers just shun all our lost family members, just to shun them, just for shun's sake.
I think it's pride, and I think we think that
It's
we're better
religious
than
pride.
that.
Yeah. It's something
you know what?
holier than thou.
I too did that. In the beginning, I didn't want the Jehovah's Witnesses to come over my house, but then when I started to learn truth, I said, let them come on in.
Well, the reason why most people don't want them coming, well, lost people don't, they don't have time for religion. Many of them don't have time. But even amongst people who in Christendom, professing believers, they weren't equipped enough. They didn't know the scriptures enough.
Yep.
The Jehovah's Witnesses know the verses they were taught.
Sure. Mormons too.
So the average believer wouldn't want to open their doors because they didn't have the power to deal with it. But when you know the word rightly divided, you can invite them in. Say, come on, let's sit, because you know all of God's word rightly divided. So
I think another aspect of all this is another man's conscience. The word conscience there is something to focus on, because somebody might come along and try and trip you up like a Pharisee style, like saying, hey, why are you eating that food? It's not because of their conscience, it's because they got an agenda, right? And you can discern that.
You have to discern that. Yeah. Well, that's why I was asking about your one cousin that you brought up. I go, why are you asking?
Right.
Because I need to know why he's asking.
Sneaky, or is it really your conscience that's being
Is this
affected?
a sincere thing? Like, man, I'm struggling. I want to know something, or you just,
Now, if it's that,
see, we got to
go to
discern
that verse.
Mm-hmm.
If it's it's being sneaky.
You point out, like I just said, the word conscience in verse 29. Because it's not for their conscience sake. It's not because their conscience is being affected, like, it's because they're being sneaky.
Then you eat it.
Sure. Well, you show them, hey, man, if your conscience, if you had a big deal with your conscience, that's why you're saying, well, let's talk about the word then. And they're like, hey, I'm not about that. And I'm like, well, then you've exposed your true colors.
Right.
That's not why
I was going to say, slice me a piece of that turkey.
Right. It's not why you were asking me in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to discern.
They're being like the Pharisees did.
And that's why I brought up that.
The Pharisees, it wasn't for their conscience, and they were trying to trip up the Lord.
Because they would say, why do your disciples eat with unwashed hands, right? It wasn't like they were struggling like, man, this word says we should wash and this, that, and the other, but I'm watching now. They just were trying to, be sneaky with them and stuff, And you know how the Lord answered? Just like he answered with a question, right?
Yep.
Why do you, check this out. He said, why do you guys transgress the word of God? Then he'd say, let me ask, the guy would ask him a sneaky little question, and Christ says, I'll answer you, but you answer me first. That's why I would ask that guy, one of the cousins who was asking, I would say, why are you asking this? Are you trying to just condemn me? And that gets to the 1 Timothy, commanding to abstain from meats in a religious way, being legalistic. And I'm like, that's how it apply today. Somebody going, oh, I thought you can celebrate Christmas, all this stuff.
Right.
Well, we're not. We're celebrating not Christmas.
I love that verse in.
There you go.
I love that verse in Luke 20 that talks about after they're trying to trip him up like that, and he shuts them down. It says, and after that, they durst not ask him any questions at all.
Yeah.
They're just out there.
Every time they ask them a question,
just keep getting shut down, so we'll just not ask you any questions.
And that's how we're supposed to deal with the mind of Christ now. We should be able to discern as we grow, even the questions they're asking. Is it foolishness what they're asking? Or is it sincerity, right?
Yep.
We can discern that most times. It's harder because I get a lot of questions to email, and sometimes, and even Jan will send me a question come from the site. She goes, I think this guy's just kind of be combative, not really want to know. I don't even answer them. Remember, I get people who try to correct us and give us a whole article about stuff, some religious dude, and Krista will be laughing. I don't know. Why are you coming to my site, dude? You start your own church, you have your own site, do your opinion.
Trying to prove you wrong.
Oh, his thing was John 3:16.
Yeah.
Why everybody always mad? Remember that guy back in Minnesota,
Yeah.
John 3:16. They killed me with that. It's in his email, taking back 3:16 or something
That's
crazy.
his email address.
And he was all over the place. Didn't rightly divide a lick. Anyway, I ain't got time for those fools. I got too many people who want it.
What was his deal with John 3:16?
Well, that was
He
in
was trying, like, it was this huge email. I read the first little bit, and I wrote
Ah,
tiny bits
that's
of
okay.
it, and I just deleted it. But it was like
I got people who want to know the truth. And
yeah,
these idiots-
trying to prove that Paul and Peter preached the same thing.
Yeah, his point was Paul and
16
Peter
applies
preached the
to
same
us,
thing.
and it was like one of these, but it was this huge.
Well, like you always say, they love John 3:16, but not John 4:22.
No, didn't I say they never bring up John 4:22? Salvations of the Jews. I guarantee you, most of them don't even know John 4:22, let alone. So it's just some religious stuff. But yeah, right. That's what I would say on that, man. Conscious is, you brought that up. That's the key, conscience. And we got to discern whether their question is, are they trying to be legalistic on us, or they really just having a struggle that we can help them with? And if you see that there's a sincere struggle there, they're trying to get some clarity at this gathering. Here's what I would say. If somebody brought, hey, why do you believe, well, why are you here? You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of ways you could go depending on how they come to you.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you here? You worried about me, why are you here? I don't believe. Okay, well, if you don't believe, do you want to know about the Lord? No, well, shut up. No, it's kidding. But we will be kind to them. But I can tell you this: we may not deal with this particular situation the way it was with meat sacrifice of idols. But if now we never dealt with this, and I don't know if y'all did. We never had anybody. We're about to eat this to the spirit of Christmas, right? Because your family are at least saved, you know. So your father will actually, when he prayed or whatever, he'll say thank you for shedding your blood for us. And so they're baby believers, but they're believers. They never dedicated to the God, eternal God of Christmas or something.
Right.
Yeah. So, and we never go. We would never go somewhere like it says. Join us for
Right.
the
Well, that's why I
spirit of
brought up like
Christmas.
a wedding or that, because we've been to certain functions for other saints where, you know,
We always
have
do it
some
for
lost guy.
We always do it for others.
Yeah.
First of all, we're not social anyway. We don't want to go. We go, oh, okay, let's go. We do it for others anyway. So
But is there something wrong with like going if you just wanted to go? Because if I got invited to a wedding,
you can go. You look, whatsoever you do, Rondell, do all to the glory of God. What the excellent choice is, if you want to go, because you're social. You're like my mother. You're like our daughter. We're introverts. You're extroverts. You guys crave people. I would say if you go, Rondell, be ready for every opportunity to share truth with them. Just use it. Paul would say, use it rather. Yep. So if you go, go. Paul says if you be disposed to, if you're invited, Ryan's right. That would be some type of pagan, when I say pagan, it's lost people, it's a feast. If you be disposed to go, go. So that's your verse right there.
so
Go.
so how
But use it to share Christ if you get the opportunity.
how did they get married in the Bible?
Well, it depends what culture you're talking about.
Oh, so okay.
Well, I mean, put it like this: depending on the age, because you got the Genesis, you're back in Genesis. They would have even in the days of the Lord Jesus Christ, for example, the wedding in Cana of Galilee, right? It's a type of Christ bringing them into the kingdom and so forth. Mary was there, his disciples. There's all that. In that one, they had an actual 7-day whole celebration. It was a celebration. But what made a marriage, quite frankly, Rondell, was the consummation of the marriage.
It's really what it means is what does the word marry mean?
Yes.
It means two things becoming one.
So what consummated?
Even today we use that like talking about recipes. It really truly marries the two flavors. You know, it really means just two becoming one.
So quite frankly, what the consummation of the couple there was what. Remember when Rachel was given to Jacob by Laban, right? It said that the day that he earned it after 7 years, yea, 14 years. Well, after the 7 years, he gave Leah. But after so what consummated that union? Well, it was when they were intimate, right? Now they had celebrating, but that's what consummated marriage. So that's what, in the eyes of God, marries a person. That intimacy. Now watch this. If the unbelieving depart, let them depart. Brothers and sisters, not such in bondage in such cases, God called it peace. In God's eyes, now I said in God's eyes, once that unbeliever makes the unbeliever makes the point to, I don't want this, you're free. But in our culture though, legally you're still bound. Legally.
If
Because-
you legally got married.
Well, right. If you legally, but right, that's what I'm saying. If you legally got married, because now, especially in the state of California, in God's eyes, you could be. I mean, Richard is going through this right now. He hadn't been with his ex. They're about to finalize the thing, but they both kind of. Anyway, the point
Also,
is,
there's
they got that connection legally. Until he breaks that legal bond, they're still affected. Like whatever's his, it's hers.
there's also common law marriage in California.
Common law, yeah,
California too. After 6 years, if you live with somebody for 6 years, you're married to them, whether you like it or not.
Exactly. People. I mean, so and it comes back to get people when they trying to get out that relationship.
I knew a guy that basically broke up with his girlfriend right before the 6 year
5
mark,
years, 364
just so he didn't have to worry
days.
about that.
Are you kidding me?
Nope.
So he didn't want to be with her no more then?
He didn't want to be married to her.
So
he broke up
what
with her
did
and-
he go back to her then?
No, he broke up with her and kicked her out of his house and got a new one.
Oh.
He's just
So
gonna
you
keep
just
doing this
recycle
every
5
He gonna just do this.
Nope.
That's cold, man.
Yeah, he's a
This
he's a
dude-
cold-hearted guy.
This dude's cold blooded.
Yeah.
Dang. He go. Count down.
You can tell.
Enough. I'm done.
Eyes of God.
Enough.
Married all
Well, yeah, that dude's in
Held
trouble.
responsible.
I'm assuming he's a lost dude.
Yeah.
He's in trouble. But I'm just saying. So Rondella, if you've been invited to a feast, wedding, and you be disposed to go. Use it to share Christ. If that opportunity presents for you, I got sneaky suspicion. The opportunity always presents itself. You gets it in there. Yeah.
Let's go back to the wedding thing, because this is my first time hearing some of this stuff.
Well, it's just because it's just not. He was basically saying you don't see that prescription, as it were, ordained or sanctioned.
As far as a ceremony.
Right.
Well, as far as the paperwork, as Krista was saying, you have to, by court, you have to sign legal document. That's why when in the Old Testament it was talking about Adam and Eve, I don't know, stupidly, I was thinking, or even later about signing a legal document, but I know it's stupid.
Well,
I'm
let
just
me
saying
explain that.
something stupid.
With Adam and Eve, there was nothing. God presented.
I know.
So they were
I'm just
married
saying.
when they consummated. But the point is, the reason they did that under law with legal documents is because it was for property rights' sake. Okay? So if a man took that woman under that law of Moses, they made it legal. Either the marriage and the divorce. Because there's property rights, there's inheritance and stuff like that.
Mhm.
You had to be able to show that this woman was his legal wife, as well as any children, and any children that they bear, or with Israel is all about the land and your inheritance. So that's why they made it legal like that, Rondell, just to keep a record of who's what, right?
But I wasn't thinking like that. I was thinking it's just the marriage itself has to be like legalized like that. But I get it. I get it.
Can I be honest? You married once you was intimate with him in the eyes of God. I'm being honest. Spiritually speaking, what God consummates this marriage, when you have that union, that two becoming one flesh, yeah. I mean, it's a lot more than that. Marriage, the word marriage incorporates a lot more, but I'm saying where it starts, Rondell, is that. Then there's the due benevolence and all. There's a lot of duties. But the point is, if the world just understood, man, yeah. God does things a lot different than how the world, they just see, yeah.
But that was just an interesting topic, that's all.
Well, because it said, you know what it says about Jacob and Rachel? It says he knew his wife and he loved her.
Mm-hmm.
He chose to love her after they got married. Most people say, well, I got to fall, like Ryan was talking about, how they use the word in love. No. Love is a choice. It says he knew his wife, there it is, consummated, and he loved her. He chose to love that woman. Yeah.
And so with
Go ahead,
wedding, so okay, because they would have like a 7-day feast and celebration and all
Well,
that
it's like
stuff.
Ryan said, depending on
So-
culture and where it's
Right.
at and stuff.
So just the whole format then of like a wedding ceremony, is that what you're kind of getting at?
Well, it just depends. Are you talking about the modern day format,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
sure? Well, I mean that is like a pagan ceremony
It's
format.
taken after pagans.
Sure, Druid stuff.
I have another question
Yeah, I
about
mean,
the Old
the wedding
Testament.
became, I mean, that was the marriage itself, that marriage supper of the Lamb and stuff like that, just talking about, like, the concept is there's a scriptural concept, but it's not the way it's done in our culture now. But even how we do it here in the Western culture it differs in other cultures and stuff.
For sure. In Japan, for example, sometimes they have a Japanese wedding, sometimes they have a Western wedding.
Right.
You know?
Oh yeah. So basically, how we know how we do it, and over here, it's different even right now on Earth than other
Ceremonies are
cultures.
different all over
Yeah.
the place.
Yeah.
I have a biblical Old Testament question.
Mm-hmm.
Why, if when they get together intimately, why, if that consummates a marriage, why did so and so? Why did the brothers, I forgot the names, want to kill the guy who had their sister?
This word right here. I already knew you were going. Between pledge and take or what we the modern day, or that was, she was taken against her will. That's the difference. It's against the will. What's the difference between a man? Look. That's why God would say stuff like this, Rhonda. You get to this when you get to the law. He would say, if a man in Israel finds a woman there, and he's smitten with her, and he desires to be his wife, he lays with her. He used the word he lays with her. He lays with her, or he knows her, whatever one. He is required to marry that woman. God says, okay, you want it? She's yours, Jack. But what made a marriage a marriage was there was a pledge. There was will involved. She was willing, and he was willing. Even if you look at Jacob and Rachel, when Rachel first saw Jacob and they saw each other, it was spark. They had the chemistry, the compatibility. It just right? Like this is Krista and I just knew. But she had to go to her father and her brothers and ask permission, and then so did Jacob. And her father says, "Are you willing to be his wife?" She says, "Yes." Willing. That's what makes it a marriage. When these dudes just went and took a woman, God says, "Okay, you did that on your own. She's yours, bro. Now you have to do the duty of a husband." So that's the difference. With those other ones, this right here, well, youngster, against their will, that was considered
Right.
And that wasn't ordained by God. But to get out of that sense, as it were, you had to make her your wife. Because if you put it like this, you got some responsibilities if you're going to be intimate with the woman, is what God is
Did
saying.
he try to make her his wife?
Who is that now?
I forgot his
The
name.
guy and the brothers came and killed him anyway.
Yeah, the brother
Now that
killed
was
him anyway.
not only because those dudes, those were Gentiles who did it against her will, and they did it against. It was Gentiles who did it against her will, and they didn't ask her father for permission to have her as a wife. In other words, that was something that was forced upon her. They took it from her. They forced her. That's rape, and that wasn't kosher, as they say in the Jews. That was, and by the way, in that culture, think about the Islamic culture. Clans and tribes kill one another. If you sullied my sister, my clan is going to take revenge on you and kill your guys. That's what they did.
They usually kill the woman too.
And the woman too. So,
That's not right.
That's just the culture.
That's what I thought they did in the Old Testament too. Didn't they do that?
Well, because once she was intimate, she could not. She wasn't a virgin anymore.
Right, but it's not her fault.
Well, let me say this. Do we have in there, Ryan, and you see if you remember, what happened with Tamar? What happened with Tamar? No, she didn't. No. So I don't think Rondell, if she was the victim.
Yeah, but with Islam, if she is
Islam. That's what I was gonna say. Well, because that's other culture. So no, God wouldn't. So I see what you're saying.
Aren't they just dedicated to the Lord then, and they're not allowed to marry again or something?
Well, they're allowed to marry, but the thing is, what man would want her?
Right.
What man would want her? That's the point.
in that culture.
In that culture.
Right.
What I'm saying is, there were women who were divorced and stuff there, or whose husbands died, and they were able to get a husband after that. But you got to have a man who's willing. You have to have a benevolent man like Boaz, right? You know who Boaz is, right? The book of Ruth. He was willing to take Ruth. Ruth was already married, right? Her husband died. Yeah, is that what happened to Ruth?
Look at Bathsheba too, right?
Bathsheba. So if you had a benevolent man,
And that's why they then go to the brothers, is
But the-
because a man wouldn't.
right? But see, in that culture, it was hard.
That's the kinsman redeemer stuff.
Yeah.
If a woman, put it like this, we're so different. If a woman was not a virgin, that purity about her was gone forever. There was always that. But
Sure.
you would have benevolent men who were willing to take her in, because for a woman, that was her livelihood, right? I mean, the culture there was the man provided for the woman. That's the whole reason Naomi, after her husband Abimelech and her sons died, she went back to Israel. That's where Boaz came in for Ruth. The point is, it's a different culture because women are independent, they can work and do it. That wasn't the culture back there. She wasn't going to. If you want to see what it was like back there, short of the killing, now Islam, that's just some religious nonsense. If she's a victim, if she's a rape victim, you protect her and heal her, you don't kill her. But in Islam, they kill her. That's why I'm saying I don't think it was that way in amongst the people of God, right? Because Tamar, her brothers actually went out and killed the men who did it.
Right.
They took it, and in that culture they could do that. It's called the avenger. They could avenge their
But
sisters.
why was their father upset about that? Is that somebody else?
Well, here's why he was upset. He says, "You make me to stink in the eyes of the people." They were in a foreign land.
Stink?
Oh. In other words, he's saying, "You sullied my reputation," is what he was saying, because they were living amongst these Gentiles. Jacob goes there, Rondell, and he sets up with the sons of Shechem in their territory. So he's just trying to live peaceably among them, right? Now, as a man who has a sister, I can understand if somebody raped my sister, I would feel like killing them, right? But there was a way they could have dealt with it. They could have went to their dad, told him. He could have went to the chief of the tribe. What would have happened, Rondell? Jacob would have persuaded the chief of the tribe to punish, maybe even kill those dudes who did that, right? But to take the law in their own hands and not talk to the heads, to their father, to the head of those tribes, these guys made it real hard for their father to live amongst these dudes, because they just killed these dudes without any warning and stuff. In other words, they didn't go through the whole proper
They gave a bad name
protocol.
to the house.
They gave a bad name, and that's what he's saying. He goes, now for the rest of the time here, he says he's got to worry about retaliation. I mean, all these Muslim cultures, they're killing each other on that. It's like in America there was like the Hatfields and the Coys, just generations of fighting to the point where nobody even knew what they were fighting over. Like the first generation knew, but they fought for generations. They fighting, but nobody know why. That's what he's worried about. He's like, nah, this thing is just going to get out of hand. We could have handled it a lot more diplomatic. We would have gotten revenge, but we would have went through the proper channels. That's what he's saying. That's why he was worried about it, because he was living amongst those guys. Yeah. You got anything else, Brian? Good. All right. Good, man. We were talking earlier, Rondell. We were saying once Ryan is able to catch up on the Q&As, because that's where we get most of the good stuff, the back and forth.